Professor Zilibele Mtumane, Dr. Dumisani Sibia, senior leaders of the university here present, members of Senate and other academics, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, molweni. Molweni. Sanibonani. Goeienaand. Good evening. Thobela. Sounds like a group from the Eastern Cape, molweni. It is indeed a great honor and special privilege for me to welcome you to the Professorial Inaugural Lecture of Professor Zilibele Mtumane. As I do so, I wish to express a very warm welcome to his loved ones, special guests, and his colleagues. This is indeed a proud and joyful, yet a landmark moment for all of you. For Professor Mtumane, and of course for us here at UJ and higher education in South Africa and beyond. The inauguration of professors is a public ceremony in which newly appointed professors are inducted into office by the Vice-Chancellor, whom I'm representing now, to deliver their inaugural addresses. The ceremony has its roots in the medieval university and serves multiple purposes. Firstly, it is an expression of welcome and an entry for new professors, joining the circle of colleagues who are already professors. Secondly, it provides a platform for the professors to display their expertise in the discipline and showcase their research. In isiXhosa, we say, ukuthwesa izidanga kwisigaba sobunjingalwazi. This, loosely translated, refers to assuming the role of a professor. Of course, in colonial traditions subscribed to by universities, this refers to the gown and the cap. Traditionally, the wise one would accept a blanket, ingubo. Once we have listened to the inaugural address, the ingubo, denoting the professorship, will be formally assumed. Today we gather to bear witness to the entry of Professor Mtumane to the illustrious community of scholars at the university. It is a celebration of the contributions to the discipline and ultimately the impact on society. Professors provide a university with its identity, character, and academic legitimacy and integrity. The inaugural lecture is a rite of passage, Professor Mtumane, following the confirmation of the appointment of the person as a professor. This evening, we'll listen to Professor Mtumane as the gown goes to town. By this I mean that the power of the inaugural address is when the expertise is showcased beyond corridors of this university, which reverberates throughout society. It stands out as a moment of pride for yourself, for your family, for your fellow scholars, for the university, and ultimately society. For the German philosopher and diplomat Humboldt, a university referred to the whole community of scholars and students engaged in common search for truth. Newman talked about teaching universal knowledge. Recently, universities have been viewed as instrumentalists, only serving the purpose of the economy or utilitarian in purpose. I would hope that we can break that narrow conceptualization and reflect on the university as contributing to the public good. Edward said in an article, I quote and I quote, on defiance and taking positions, offers a formulation of the ideal role of a true intellectual as one who commands a vast knowledge of his or her discipline, who is rigorous in the analysis of literature, who views being an intellectual as a vocation, the intellectual who considers it necessary to step into the public sphere and to speak truth to power, namely, to question, interpret, and understand authority rather than consolidating it. To step out of the boundaries of the academy, to connect oneself to affiliate oneself, to align oneself with an ongoing process or contest of some sort, perhaps with the aim of improving the lot of the oppressed. The intellectual who functions as a kind of public memory, to recall what is forgotten or ignored, to make the connections that are otherwise hidden, and to provide alternatives for mistaken policies. It remains then for us as a university, with a Pan-Africanist vision, to derive our mandate as intellectuals and as professors. How do we embrace the role of a professor and a disruptor while continuing to be flagship carriers of our disciplines? This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we will listen to Professor Mtumane as one further step in the journey of being a professor. This is a journey which does not culminate once this lecture has been given. It is a self-reflective pause in the journey of a professor with a promise of more to enrich our minds and simultaneously contributing to the rich intellectual body of work in the discipline. Please allow me at this juncture to invite the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Camilla Naidu, to introduce formally Professor Mtumane. Thank you.
Good evening, Sanibonani, Dumelang, Goeienaand. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Prof. Zilibele Mtumane, and I'll read some extracts from his biography. Zilibele Mtumane is the firstborn of the late Bisinia and Vutezwa Mtumane. He was born in Kwelera, district of East London, in the Cape Province of South Africa, and he grew up herding cattle. It is from this responsibility that he learned some basic life skills. When he started schooling, he had to combine herding cattle with attending school. At the time, his world was largely within the borders of East London, and he was not aware of anything beyond. It was his studying of history and geography that gave him a glimpse of other parts of the world, even though the lessons were more theoretical than practical. His scope of the world began broadening when the schools he attended got involved in tours around the Eastern Cape. He attended Zozo and King's Mission's primary school, Jongilanga Secondary School at Kwelera, and Tlokoma High School in Ndamtsane. As the leading sporting codes in the Eastern Cape were rugby, cricket, and boxing at the time, Zilibele played the former, I assume rugby, at school and in local clubs. He gained some practical knowledge of boxing as well, mainly as a fighting tool amongst his peers. Growing up, he would watch the stick fighting game played by older boys and often got involved, he says, very casually. Attending Tlokoma High School in Ndantsane, where he did standards 9 and 10, represented the beginning of his leaving the rural for semi-urban life. Studying at the University of Fort Hare, where he obtained the Bachelor of Arts Honours, and Master of Arts degrees, as well as a higher education diploma, led him to being counted among up-and-coming academics at the time. Attaining the Doctor of Literature and Philosophy qualification from the University of South Africa, after which he obtained a diploma in translation, was a dream come true. Moving up the ranks of academia up to professorship were achievements never really thought of when he was still a country boy. Despite this upward trajectory and having become more urban, he keeps strong ties with Kwelera. Zilibele began his teaching career as a high school teacher at Themba Labantu and Kumbulani high schools in King Williamstown area, and this was followed by lecturing at the then Griffiths Mkenge College of Education, also in King Williamstown. His university career began at the former Vista University, which got incorporated into the Rand Afrikaans University, and now the University of Johannesburg. Apart from lecturing at these institutions, he also held various leadership and managerial positions. At Griffiths Mkenge College of Education, he also once served as acting rector. At the universities he served in, he played numerous roles: sub-head of department, academic leader, faculty coordinator, departmental head, and head of school. His research involvement has included attending academic conferences where he presented research papers both within and outside South Africa. And the countries he has had academic visits to include Botswana, Greece, Canada, Thailand, Austria, and China. Zilibele has published several accredited articles and books. His research interests include African literature, African culture, and translation. His publications, together with the supervision of postgraduate students he consistently mentors, are his contributions to the academic world. He hopes to use his new achievement not only for further developing himself, but for assisting up-and-coming academics to have their dreams come true as well. So from us, thank you, Prof. Mtumane, for the incredible role you have been playing in research, teaching, and mentorship at UJ. We credit you with revitalizing interest in the African languages and for driving multilingualism in the faculty and beyond. May you and the School of Languages go from strength to strength at UJ. We look forward to your inaugural address now. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge Dr. Nolita Vukuza, who is the Senior Executive Director and member of Executive Committee. Prof. Camilla Naidu, who is the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities. Dr. Dumisani Sibia, who is from the Department of African Languages. I would also like to thank all the other leaders of the university who are here and my colleagues. I also have the privilege of having my family joining me today at this university. I also would like to thank all the guests who are here and those who are watching virtually. I must clarify something. After some people received the invitation, they always asked me if I have been lying to them when I always said I'm a professor, that I only become a professor only today. Then I sometimes say to them, these things have a tendency of going according to levels. In other words, this is another level, a level that deserves to be celebrated. I know there are many more levels still ahead, which I'm not sure if I will reach before I retire from the university, but not from academia. An academic never retires. That is what I have learned. So, thanks a lot. Regarding my address, the title says, have Africans ever been non-believers? Have Africans ever been non-believers? Can someone help me with a tissue or something? Please. Since the coming of the colonialists to Africa, Africans have had to bear with the label of being non-believers. Those who colonized and oppressed the indigenous people of the continent saw it fit to label the aboriginals even as Kafirs. I know this is a very sensitive word these days, but for the sake of research, I thought it fit to use it. While this label has been used for a long time to refer to Africans, an important question is whether it befits them. This paper then addresses this matter as it attempts to prove whether this is the case or not. Ideas have been solicited from works that comment on the use of this term and those that reveal the religious nature of the Africans. An attempt is also made to define the concept of Kafir for a clear understanding of its meaning and origin. Mqhayi records, izizwe zixelelana ukuba uXhosa ubengenalo unqulo ebukumkanini bakhe. Translated as, nations tell one another that Xhosa had no religion in his kingdom. Religion is an important aspect of life among human beings. Without it, humans would lead a life of chaos and possibly barbarism. This idea is alluded to by Mtumane, who views religion as a controlling influence and adds that the Xhosa people were believed by other nations to be living a chaotic and barbaric life with no controlling influence. The designation Kafir, which was used by the Europeans to refer to Africans, is proof that these people were thought of as having no religion by the Europeans. The term was a derogative way of referring to Africans by the Europeans. It generally means an unbeliever or someone without a religion. According to the online etymological dictionary, the term is derived from the Arabic kafir, meaning unbeliever, infidel, and impious wretch, and has a literal sense of one who does not admit the blessings of God. The dictionary further states that it is used as an equivalent of heathen to refer to Bantus in South Africa. In their use of this noun, the Europeans viewed Africans as unbelievers or heathens who led a life of barbarism. The above position by the Europeans and probably other nations was unfortunate and can be emphatically disputed. For instance, in the words of Mqhayi, kuyazeka kuye wonke ubani ukuba amaXhosa ngabanquli bomenzi, undikhoyo, uqamata ophilileyo. Translated as, it is known to everybody that amaXhosa are worshippers of the Creator, the omnipresent, and a living God. amaXhosa, in this instance, are considered to represent the other nations of Africa as well. The above assertion by Mqhayi emphasizes that not only do Africans have a religion, but they are worshippers of God as well. God is a being who is believed to be the creator of the universe. Rooney regards him as the supreme being who is believed to in monotheistic religions such as Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity, to be the all-powerful and all-knowing creator of the universe, worshipped as the only God. The phrase such as Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity suggests that these are not the only religions in which God is worshipped. In fact, God is referred to by different names in different languages. Just in South Africa, the English-speaking people refer to him as God. The African-speaking people refer to him as God. Among the Isindebele-speaking people, he is Zimu. Among the Sesotho, Sepedi, and Setswana-speaking people, he is Murimo. AmaXhosa call him Umdali, Umenzi, Undikoyo, and Uqamata. Even among different religions, God is referred to by different names. The Muslims, for instance, refer to him as Allah. The presence of titles referring to God in the languages of the African people is also proof that these people have a religion that has God as the supreme being. Rukuni further emphasizes this point when he states, "Our ancestors always knew that there is one God." This is confirmed by the presence of names referring to God in the different African languages. In this regard, in the languages of Angola, God is referred to as Kalunga, Nzambi, and Suku. In Uganda, he is referred to as Akju, Jok, Katanda, Kumumba, Ori, Rugaba, and Weri. Mbiti avers that the belief in God is a very ancient belief in African religious belief. Among AmaXhosa, Mkhayi reports, "Ngemihla yakudala, mini kwavela indaba kwabe kumntu wamnye wokuphatha abanye. Kwathiwa ke lo mntu ngumntu wegazi. Kwathiwa lo mntu yinkonyana yohlanga. Kwathiwa lo mntu makathotyelwe luluntu, aze athi yena thobelwe uqamata." The translation is, in ancient days, when mountains appeared, one person was instated to rule over others. That person was proclaimed of royal blood. That person was designated the calf of the nation. It was proclaimed that he be obeyed by humanity, and he in turn to obey God. The person introduced as having to rule over others, who is also of royal blood and the calf of the nation, to be obeyed by humanity and him to obey God, is a king or chief among Africans. Note should be taken that this person, that is the king or chief, is said to have been instated during the time of the appearance of the mountains. The appearance of the mountains is generally taken to be part of the creation of the earth. This statement then signifies that in the worldview of the Africans, kings and chiefs were instituted at creation. Yes, this could be an exaggeration that is used to emphasize the period when Africans have had a religion that includes God as the supreme being. If around the appearing of the mountains, These beings were ordered to obey God. That means Africans have always believed in God to have been in existence even before creation. The above citation reveals the order of authority among Africans, where people obey the king, or chief, and the latter obeys God. The highest position is that of God, followed by that of kings and chiefs, and then ordinary people. This may be represented in a pyramid as follows. Thank you. God's ranking highest in this pyramid illustrates that he is considered the highest force. He is regarded as the final point of reference and appeal when disorders occur. As the chief occupies the level between God and people, he is considered as obeying God directly, and people obey God through him. Kangule provides a more detailed pyramid of the authority as follows. Second one, please. Thank you. Kangule adds the level of ancestors between God and kings or chiefs. Kings then do not come immediately below God, but below the ancestors. Kangule also categorizes people into fathers, mothers, and children. The ancestors then, who are situated closest to God, are believed to act as mediators between him and those living this side of eternity, according to their categories. It is understood that putting mothers under fathers could be debatable. However, as the paper is not necessarily about gender issues, but the religious position of Africans, that point could be better addressed in another study. In traditional culture, people are believed to approach God through the ancestors. This is what Mbiti implies when he says, people feel themselves very small in the sight of God. In approaching him, they sometimes need the help of someone else. For this reason, African peoples make use of helpers in approaching God, although they also approach him directly. The helpers mentioned in this extract are ancestors in the religion of the traditional Africans, Christ in Christianity, and Muhammad in the Muslim religion. The time when Africans started knowing about and worshiping God is provided by Hodgson in the following comment about amaXhosa. Long, long ago, the Xhosa worshipped Kamata. His name was in their tongues even during the time of Chiwo, that is the late 17th century. And even before then, Kamata was worshipped by them. They did this before the races arrived. The phrase long, long ago estimates the period from whence Africans began to worship God. The phrase does not indicate a specific time. This suggests that it is not known and cannot be traced when these people started having this worship. It is like the situation with the account of the Bible that in the beginning, God created. And in the same vein, it is not specifically indicated when the beginning was. It is assumed that it is a time that runs back indefinitely. The period when Africans began to worship God may also be regarded as running back indefinitely. This idea is strengthened by the mention of the time of Chiwo, and even before then. They did this before the races arrived. Note should be taken that the time of Chiwo is estimated to have been during the 17th century. And it is also stated that even before then, AmaXhosa, for instance, worshipped Kamata already. From the above discussion, it may safely be argued that since their existence, these people have had a religion and belief that always involves the worship of God. In this sense, they were never kafirs, if one considers the above definition of the word. The phrase, before the races arrived, refers to the coming of the Europeans and other nations to Africa. If Africans worshipped God before the arrival of these races, that puts under question the popular view that it is the Westerners who introduced God to the Africans. What they might have introduced is the manner of worshipping God that was probably different from that of the Aboriginals. Otherwise, worshipping God has always been part of the life of Africans. Whether the manner of worshipping by the traditional Africans was the right one or not, could be a subject for another study. Africans have a tendency of associating with God any natural phenomena or phenomenon they do not have answers for. For instance, in some traditional African communities, thunderstorms are associated with him. When there are thunderstorms, some traditional Africans always sit in reverence, and as they believe that God might be passing by or trying to communicate something to them. When lightning strikes an object, that is always considered as ukufeketa or ukudlala kwenkosi. That is the Lord becoming sporty, demonstrating that God wants something from human beings. Hence, a ritual involving the cleansing of the members of the entire village for a week or so, followed by a day of celebrations, would be conducted. At this instance, it is believed that God has come himself and not sent any medium. The celebrations demonstrate the belief that God has been appeased. Also, in some traditional African communities, people are known of avoiding pointing an object that is towards the sky with an open or straightened finger. They always do so with a bent finger. The belief is that pointing towards the sky with an open finger is tantamount to poking God, whose residence is believed to be in that direction. Pointing up with a bent finger, then, is to avoid poking God and to show respect as well. Before the coming of the missionaries from the West, Africans had their own way of understanding and interacting with God. Some people erroneously refer to Africans as the worshippers of ancestors instead of worshiping God. This is an error because, as illustrated earlier, ancestors occupy the position of being intercessors between human beings and God. This is in the same manner as other religions also have intercessors between God and human beings. God is generally associated with kindness, justice, benevolence, and all other positive attributes. Those who labeled Africans as kafirs do not seem to have demonstrated these attributes towards Africans. Instead, they are the ones who oppressed the latter and barbarically dispossessed them of their land. On the other hand, Africans never left their land to rob other nations of their possessions. Instead, they persevered the atrocities committed by others on them. When comparing those who viewed Africans as kafirs and Africans, the former seem to be the ones who demonstrated or who demonstrate characteristics of being kafirs. They killed innocent Africans brutally. An example of this is how King Hinza of Amaxhosa was slain, as revealed by Oaks. Mtumane also reveals this brutality in the poem entitled Inhloko kaHinza. The Europeans labeling Africans as kafirs then is more like pointing at the Africans with one finger, while three fingers are pointing back at them. Lumkela iminwe emithathu. That is, beware of the three fingers. If being kafirs would be categorized, the Europeans, based on their actions towards Africans, would be more of kafirs than Africans. In conclusion, this paper has examined the suitability of the titles kafirs, non-believers, and heathens for Africans. From the discussion, it was and is still an error and a misnomer to refer to Africans by these titles. Africans did and still do not deserve to be referred to as non-believers, heathens, and kafirs. Instead, it should be suggested for those who saw it fit to label them in this manner to check, based on their treatment of Africans, how far these labels are from themselves. Thank you.
Vice Chancellor functionary, who is also a Senior Executive Director and member of Executive Committee, Dr. Nolita Vuguza, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Camila Naidu, the Professor to be, oh, is it Professor to be? Oh, already a professor. Okay, Professor to be, Professor Zilibele Mtumane, whom I fondly call Tikela. The entire Mtumane family, distinguished guests, and professors from within and without our lovely university that is currently ranked number 2 in the country and the continent, members of the Department of African Languages, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Goeienaand. Firstly, I wish to congratulate you, Ngingalwazi Mtumane, on this wonderful achievement. Believe me, we are also coming. You have come a long way and you deserve this special occasion. What a lecture. What a subject you have selected. Your lecture tackles one of the most significant subjects, that is religion, a subject that has a direct bearing on the decolonization of the mind of the African people. Your lecture confronts religion with sincerity, sensitivity, generosity, simplicity, and maturity. As typical of your writing, where you pay attention to the meanest of detail, you kept it simple, yet very deep, striking a balance between the academic jargon and prosaic writing. As you correctly observe, I quote, "Religion is an important aspect of life among human beings. Without it, human beings would lead a life of chaos and possibly barbarism." End quote. Your words suggest that human beings are inherently religious in nature. Your observation reminds one of Voltaire's famous citation, I quote, "If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him." End quote. Your lecture teaches us a great deal about the nature and importance of identity in different cultures of the world. It teaches us that identity is about what people used to be, what they are, and aspire to be. We also learn that identity is simultaneously what people are and what they are not, and that imposing identities and names on others may also be a negative self-reflection on the very imposer or the name giver. In addition, it teaches us that, as Sherman and Cohen observe, identities become an issue when they are under threat. It is the colonial intrusion, that is external forces, which threatened the religious identity and other identities of the African people soon after the colonial encounter. Your lecture is by implication a wake-up call to Africans to reclaim their lost identities, religions, and voices, and to rejuvenate themselves. Tikela, your lecture challenges the dominance of one form of religion over others, the dominance of one race over others. It draws our attention to the resemblances in different religions, which is in itself an allusion to one human race. Your lecture reminds us that different people of the world use different names to refer to God, and that in the hierarchical composition of their religious belief systems, they have different intercessors who mediate between human beings and the supreme God and the supreme being that is God. As you critically contend, these analogies illustrate the religiosity of the African people. This is a view that is also concisely summed up by the late Lucky Dube's song titled "Jah," when he sings. I wish Professor Mtumane could sing these lyrics because he is more musical than I am. But I am going to say the lyrics nonetheless. I quote, "The Rasta men call him Jah. Some people call him Allah. the Englishmen call him God, but he is one. That is how he concludes his lyrics. He says, he is one. On that note, I would like to once again congratulate you, Professor Mtumane. All I can say is, nawe kweleche awumncinyane. Siyabulela nje ngalwazi. Sithi Mtumane, mvuthuluka, dlamanzi, dlemnyango, mbikimba, yongose, tikela. Thank you. Tamaku.
Well, that was it. Congratulations, Professor. And wishing you the best in your journey forward. And I heard ukuba kuthiwa kwelera. Ndiyayazi ukuba ikwelecha. Congratulations and all the best in your journey of being an academic. And thank you very much for everyone who's here. Thank you to the family who supported you and were with you all the way. And thank you for those who found time to come and be with us this evening. And so, ladies and gentlemen, by powers vested in me, I dissolve this evening. And then please, you are invited to refreshments after this. Thank you very much. And thank you to Professor Camilla. And thank you to Dr. Sbia. Thank you very much for your inputs. Thank you.